There is a man said to have been the wealthiest human being in recorded history, wealthier than Rockefeller, Bezos, and Musk combined. His empire produced more than half the world's gold. He commanded armies of tens of thousands and built universities that outlasted empires. His name was Mansa Musa, and in the year 1324, he went for a walk that nearly broke the global economy. Mansa Musa was the 14th century ruler of the Mali Empire, a kingdom so vast it stretched across present-day Senegal, Guinea, Mali, Burkina Faso, and Niger. At its height, Mali was the economic center of gravity for two continents. Musa came to power in 1312 after his predecessor, Abu Bakr II, vanished at sea with 2,000 boats. Musa inherited the throne and immediately tightened his grip. He was a methodical autocrat who expanded his borders through relentless military conquest. To his subjects, he was a god king. In his court, even the highest officials were required to grovel and cover their heads with dust. To defy his etiquette was to invite immediate, often lethal, retribution. In 1324, Musa made his Hajj, the pilgrimage to Mecca. He traveled with a caravan of nearly 80,000 people, including 12,000 enslaved servants, each carrying bars of solid gold. When he reached Cairo, he gave gold freely to the poor and the mosques. While history remembers this as an act of pure kindness, you don't rule an empire of gold with kindness alone. He didn't realize, or perhaps didn't care, that he was crashing the market. By flooding the city with bullion, he caused massive inflation that destabilized the Mediterranean economy for 12 years. One man's display of piety was an entire region's financial ruin. This journey was also a 4,000-mile death march across the Sahara. For the enslaved and the low-ranking soldiers, the pilgrimage was a brutal test of survival. Thousands perished from heat and exhaustion, their lives treated as mere overhead for Musa's grand entrance onto the world stage. Musa didn't just travel the world, he consumed it. On his return, he brought back architects and scholars to transform Timbuktu into an intellectual capital. But this wasn't just urban renewal. While Musa was praying in Mecca, his generals were busy seizing the cities of Gao and Timbuktu by force. He didn't just build the Sankor Mosque, he built a system of absolute control. The University of Sankor held more books than almost any institution in the world, but it was the heart of an empire that ran on the labor of the conquered. He used his wealth to buy the best minds, the best weapons, and the absolute silence of his enemies. Why haven't you heard of him? Because European historiography had little interest in centering African empires. The medieval world we remember is the Mediterranean, Rome, Byzantium, the Crusades. Africa is often taught as ancient Egypt, followed by a long silence until colonialism. Musa doesn't fit that silence. He appears on the Catalan Atlas of 1375, seated on a golden throne, holding a massive nugget. European cartographers knew he existed. They just didn't want him to be the protagonist of the story they were telling. Musa died around 1337. His empire eventually fragmented. The gold was spent, and the buildings fell to ruin. Today, in modern Mali, he is remembered with a complicated kind of pride, a symbol of a time when West Africa was the center of the world, yet a reminder of the staggering inequality that golden ages are built upon. What he leaves us is a question. How much of history have we been told? Mansa Musa was a conqueror, a scholar, and a ruthless tactician. He was a man who shook the world and marched thousands to their deaths to prove his devotion. He was the richest man to ever live, and he had the blood on his hands to prove it. Of all the rulers, the most powerful, the richest, the most fortunate, the most feared by his enemies, and the most able to do good to those around him. That was the description from Ibn Khaldun, a 14th century historian. But as history shows, that power always came at a price.